When my sister, Alina, got engaged, it was supposed to be one of the happiest days of our lives. The lights shimmered like golden raindrops across the hall, soft music played in the background, and everyone was smiling, except me. I stood near the corner, holding a small box wrapped in silver paper, waiting for the right moment. I wasn't supposed to be the center of attention, but somehow, fate had other plans. Alina always had this presence, confident, flawless, the kind of girl people turned to look at when she entered a room. And I was always the quiet one, the one standing behind her, the one introduced as Alina's sister like my name didn't matter. Growing up, she teased me about my looks, my messy hair, my uneven skin tone, my soft voice that never fought back. I learned to smile through it. But that night, she crossed a line I didn't even know existed. When it was time for her engagement toast, she stood beside her fiancé, Daniel, a charming man with a calm smile and eyes that looked kind. She raised her glass and said, "I just want to thank everyone for being here, even my little sister, who somehow managed to look decent tonight." The room laughed. Not a harsh laugh, the kind that hides behind polite smiles, but it felt like every chuckle was a dagger cutting into me. I tried to smile, but my heart burned. Daniel looked uncomfortable, even whispered something to her, but she brushed him off and kept talking. She's always been the shy one, the plain one, but at least she tries. And that's when something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. I realized she'd never change, not unless she was forced to see herself the way I had seen her all those years. Cruel, shallow, untouchable in her own illusion of perfection. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. I just looked at her, then at Daniel, and for the first time, he looked back at me with eyes that truly saw me. Not as Alina's sister, but as someone else entirely. An hour later, when dinner was served and the guests were busy, I quietly walked toward the couple's table and placed my small silver-wrapped box beside Daniel's plate. "This is for both of you," I said softly. Alina glanced at it and smirked. "Oh, how thoughtful. I hope it's not another one of your handmade surprises," she mocked, laughing under her breath. Daniel frowned slightly, but I didn't reply. I just smiled politely and walked away. Later, when the crowd gathered again for the gift opening, everyone circled around as Alina unwrapped presents, gold jewelry, crystal glasses, luxury watches. Laughter filled the air again. And then Daniel picked up the small silver box. "This one's from your sister," he said. The room went quiet as he slowly untied the ribbon. Alina rolled her eyes, whispering something like, probably something sentimental. But when Daniel opened the box, the air shifted, like the sound of glass cracking under pressure. Inside was a simple USB drive and a folded letter. "What's this?" Alina said, visibly irritated. Daniel unfolded the letter and started reading silently. His expression changed within seconds, confusion, disbelief, then shock. The color drained from his face. The crowd noticed. Alina, suddenly nervous, grabbed the paper from his hands. Her voice trembled as she read, "You deserve to know who she really is." People began whispering. Daniel looked at me, his voice low but sharp. "Is this real?" Alina's hands shook as she shouted, "This is ridiculous. She's jealous. It's fake." But her voice cracked, and that was all it took. Daniel inserted the USB into the projector laptop nearby, and within moments, the screen behind them lit up. Videos. Dozens of them. Messages, screenshots, clips, conversations between Alina and someone else. Another man. The hall fell into stunned silence. Every fake smile, every proud laugh that had filled that evening evaporated. Alina stood frozen, her face pale as snow. Daniel didn't say a word. He just watched, his jaw clenched, his eyes dark. The guests began whispering louder now, phones rising like small, glowing witnesses. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I just watched as years of arrogance unraveled in front of everyone. It wasn't revenge. It was revelation. Because that drive didn't come from hate. It came from truth. A month before the engagement, I'd found out accidentally. I was at her apartment helping her pack when I noticed her phone buzzing nonstop. When she left the room, I saw messages pop up, intimate ones. From a man who wasn't Daniel. I confronted her that night, begged her to stop, told her Daniel didn't deserve that. She laughed in my face, saying, "You wouldn't understand. People like me don't settle for less." That sentence burned in my memory. I wanted to tell Daniel, but I didn't know how. Until that night, when she humiliated me publicly, that's when I realized silence would make me her accomplice. So, I made my decision. I gathered proof. I put everything together. And I waited. As the footage ended, Daniel quietly took off his engagement ring and placed it on the table. The sound of the ring touching the glass echoed through the hall like thunder. Alina tried to reach for him, sobbing, "Please, I can explain." But he stepped back. His voice broke the air like a blade. "You already did. In every message." He turned and walked out. The guests followed one by one, leaving her standing there, broken, shaking, alone. I walked up to her, tears filling my own eyes. "You always said I wasn't beautiful," I whispered. "But maybe beauty isn't what people see, maybe it's what they remember." She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't. As I left the hall, I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel victorious. Just free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in her shadow. But somewhere inside, a small part of me still wished things had been different, that she hadn't forced me to become the mirror she refused to look into. Outside, the cold air hit my face. The city lights shimmered like 1,000 quiet witnesses. I looked up, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, sometimes, truth isn't the revenge. It's the freedom that follows. The next morning, the headlines had already spread like wildfire. Engagement ends in chaos. Bride exposed during party. Alina's name was everywhere, social media, local gossip pages, even trending hashtags. Every photo from that night now carried the weight of her humiliation. I stayed off the internet. I didn't open messages. I didn't answer calls. I didn't feel like celebrating, not even for a second. Because deep down, I knew that while I'd revealed the truth, I had also destroyed something that could never be rebuilt. Not just her engagement, but the bridge between us. 2 days later, I heard a knock on my apartment door. I hesitated before opening it. When I did, I saw Daniel standing there. His eyes looked tired, hollow, but calm. He wasn't angry. He just looked done. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I nodded and stepped aside. He walked in, glanced around the small living room, and sighed. For a long moment, we didn't speak. The silence felt heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind that held too many things unsaid. Finally, he said, "I didn't know who else to talk to. I thought I should at least say, thank you." I looked at him, unsure what to say. "You don't need to thank me," I replied softly. "You didn't deserve what she did." He nodded slowly, then looked down at his hands. "You know, when you gave me that gift, I thought it was something sweet, maybe a photo or a note. I didn't expect it to change everything I believed about her." There was a long pause before he added, "And about myself." His words sank deep. Sometimes, when you expose someone's lie, you don't just break them. You break the illusion others built around them too. "I'm sorry it had to happen that way," I whispered. But I didn't know how else to stop her. He gave a faint smile. "You did what you had to. You told the truth." He hesitated, then said something that caught me off guard. "But it must have hurt you too." It did. It hurt more than I could ever explain. Watching my sister fall apart wasn't satisfying. It was tragic. Every memory we had as children, every laugh, every shared secret, all of it flashed in my mind that night as she cried in front of everyone. Daniel stood to leave, but before he did, he said, "I hope someday she realizes what she lost. Not just me, but you." When he left, I sat there alone for hours. The city outside carried on, cars, lights, people laughing somewhere far away. But in my chest, there was this strange emptiness. Like I'd finished a battle but lost a part of myself in the process. A week later, my mother called. Her voice was soft, fragile. "She's been asking for you," she said. For a moment I froze. I didn't know what to feel, anger, guilt, sympathy, or maybe all at once. But I went. Because no matter what she'd done, she was still my sister. When I entered her house, everything looked the same. The white curtains, the scent of her favorite candles, but she didn't. Alina sat on the couch, her hair unbrushed, her eyes swollen from crying. The confident woman who once laughed at me in front of a crowd now looked like a shadow of herself. She didn't speak immediately, just looked at me, her lips trembling. "I didn't think you'd come," she finally said. "I almost didn't," I replied honestly. There was silence between us. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I saw the videos again. I wanted to hate you for it, but I couldn't, because every time I did, I saw what I'd become." Her voice cracked, and tears filled her eyes. "I don't even know who I am anymore." I sat beside her quietly. For the first time in years, we weren't fighting. We were just two broken pieces of the same story, finally seeing each other without the layers of pride. "Do you remember when we were kids?" I asked softly. "You used to braid my hair every morning before school." She nodded weakly. "And you used to sneak cookies into my bag, so Mom wouldn't find out." We both laughed a little through the tears. It felt fragile, like trying to touch something delicate after years of keeping your hands away. She looked at me again. "Why did you do it? Why didn't you just tell him privately?" I took a deep breath. "Because I tried, Alina. I tried to make you see what you were doing. But you didn't listen. You made fun of me, called me jealous, plain, small. And maybe I am small, but not invisible." She stared at the floor, nodding slowly. "You were right," she whispered. "I hurt people who loved me. I hurt you most of all." There was a long pause before she added, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to see that I'm not proud of what I did. I'm ashamed." For the first time, her voice sounded human, not polished, not arrogant, just real. I reached over and held her hand. "I don't hate you, Alina," I said quietly. "I never did. I just wanted you to stop hurting people who cared about you. I wanted you to see me, not as your shadow, but as your sister." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She gripped my hand tightly. "I see you now," she whispered. We sat there for hours talking, really talking about things we never said. About how our parents compared us, how she felt pressure to be perfect, how I felt invisible. For the first time, it wasn't about who was better. It was about understanding the damage we both carried. As the sun began to set, she said softly, "I don't know if Daniel will ever forgive me." "Maybe not," I said. "But forgiveness isn't always about others. Sometimes it's about learning to forgive yourself." She nodded, wiping her tears. "You've always been stronger than me," she said. I smiled faintly. "No. I just learned to hide my pain better." When I left her house that evening, the air felt lighter. Not because everything was fixed, but because something had finally healed. That night, I stood by my window, watching the city lights shimmer again, just like the night of her engagement. But this time, they didn't remind me of pain. They reminded me of peace, of the strange beauty that comes when truth breaks everything, only to rebuild it into something more honest. In the distance, I saw fireworks, maybe from another celebration somewhere. They exploded in colors, bright and loud, filling the night sky. For a moment, I closed my eyes and let the sound wash over me. Sometimes, the end of something isn't a tragedy, it's a quiet beginning disguised as loss. I didn't know what the future held for Alina or for Daniel. Maybe one day they'd cross paths again. Maybe they wouldn't. But I knew one thing. I wasn't the quiet shadow anymore. I wasn't the sister standing behind. I was the woman who faced her truth and set herself free. And that, I realized, was the most beautiful thing I had ever done.